Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we're going to be making some very permanent black dye that can be used for all different kinds of materials, from clay pots to beads to hemp to your clothing, all kinds of stuff. But the first thing we're going to need to do to make this dye is we get to go on an acorn hunt. Let's take a look. Alright guys, so we've collected all of our acorns. I've got them in a little bag here, and I decapped them. I took the little top hat off. You're going to want to do the same. The ratio that you're going to need to make the concoction that we're doing for the first step of this dye is about 15 large acorns to 1 cup of water. So just ratio it out however many cups you're going to need based on the size of the item that you're trying to dye. And then also use your judgment. You know, if you can't find large acorns and you're using small, obviously use more than 15 to get up to that same amount of about 15 large. I have a ratio of big and small, so I have about 20 acorns here. So our next step is going to be to expose our actual nut inside the acorn and crush it up so that we can achieve our tannic solution. So you can use whatever means you have necessary, whether it's a pestle or you have an electric grinder or whatever you have. I'm just using rocks. So all I'm going to do is put it upside down, and at the tip of it I'm going to give one little swift tap. You may need to do more than one. That's going to need more than one. And make it so that we have a crack so that we can pull our outer shell off. You can see how I'm starting to get the actual nut inside there. There we go. And then I'll just use my rock to get it into slightly smaller pieces, the best that I can here. And then I'll use some other means to actually crush it up really fine once I've got it to that point. I did save this one that I already did to give you an example. Sometimes you will have bad acorns, and I don't know if you can see right in the bottom there, that little white spot. That's some sort of larvae that's gotten into this and eaten it out. This actually isn't a bad one. I've opened ones before that have 3 or 4 in them, and this entire nut will be that eaten brown, dark, soil looking type stuff that you have. You're not going to want to use those because you want to get the actual nut. That's what's going to give you your tannic solution. Okay, so I finished cracking up my acorns. As you can see, I've got it to as much of a powder as I can get in there with the means that I have. Just keep going as far as you can. You know, if you have a food processor, that's great. If you want to do it like I did, that's fine. Use whatever means you have. But the next step is I've got a little container. I'm just using the bottom of a soda bottle because I don't want to risk damaging any of my pots and pans or anything like that. Tannics do chemically react with different metals, so you want to be careful about that. So I'm just going to use that, and that way it's nice and clear, and I can just reuse the container or dispose of it afterwards. And so I'm just going to put all my shavings inside of there, or all my powder. And I'm going to pour 1 cup of water over the top of it, if I can hopefully pour this in there. And you want to make sure that your 1 cup covers your solution of acorns, which you can see that it clearly does. And we're just going to let that sit for a couple minutes in cold steep while we go on to the next step. You can also see the maggots that I was getting out of those acorns from the ones that were bad. I had to replace quite a few, and that's another reason why you're better off breaking them up to do this than leaching the tannin water. So I'm going to bring those up and feed them to the critters. Alright, so our next 2 steps are, one is to take your material, and I'm using a little bit of hemp cordage because I want to use this to make some sort of a necklace to tie up some of the feathers I've gotten from my ducks. And we're just going to take that and completely submerge it in your tannin water. as much as you can. I might put a little rock on top of that to make sure it stays down if it floats up. Then nice in the water. We're going to let that soak at least overnight so that you guys know the longer that you let it soak, the blacker it's going to become. The less you let it soak, the more light colored and a gray color that you're going to get. So our next step is now to collect rust. The rust that you want to get is from an iron-based metal like steel, iron or steel. And things that will come with that are old nails. The back brake drums on cars are typically an iron or steel. You can also tell because steel will be magnetic if you're not sure. Iron, when it's still good, oftentimes has a crystally looking effect in the shine of the metal, while steel will be a very nice just metallic silver. If you can't find either of those, you can use a steel wool pad, but this is the more traditional way to do it. And I've already started, but once you get your rust, you want to break it off of whatever metal it's on, and then start breaking it up as much as you can with a rock or a hammer until it's in a powdered form like I have in the top corners there. I still have to break up the rest more. And you do want about 2 tablespoons of the broken up iron rust powder to 1 cup of water. But we are just going to leave this off to the side now. Make sure it's covered from getting any water in it if it's outside and it's going to rain or anything. And just leave it off to the side. Like I said, we'll let this soak overnight. And then we'll do the next step to actually turning it black in the morning. And now that we've collected our rust, I'm just going to try to use a rock. You can use a hammer, whatever you've got, to crush it down as fine as I can to get it more like the powder that's on the right side here rather than the flakes that's on the other. Actually crushes really easily. The rust is crushed into a nice powder, so our next step is I'm going to take my 1 cup of either vinegar or lemon juice and pour it over the top of our rust. Now we're going to remove our material from the tannic solution into the rust solution. I do suggest to either wear gloves or use something else to get your material out so you don't get it on your hands. I'm just going to use two sticks to try to pull it out, because this does actually do a chemical reaction that doesn't only dye the material, it actually strips the color out and replaces it with black. And it'll do the same thing to your hands, and it will take quite a few weeks to get out. So just try not to get a combination of the 2 liquids on your skin. I'm just going to move it right over into there. Make sure it's completely submerged, the part that you want dyed. And then again, we're just going to leave that to sit for at least the rest of the day or overnight or whatever works for your time schedule. Just like I said before, the longer that you leave it, the darker black it's going to become. The less time you leave it in for, the lighter gray it's going to be. Alright, so you can see the color that the water has turned. That nice black for it to dye your material. So we'll see what my straight hemp is looking like here. If I can pull it out. You can see the color that's turned. It's a little bit light gray, so I could probably switch it back to the tannic solution and back into the rust solution one more time if I wanted it dark. After this, all you have to do is wring it out, rinse it, let it dry. If you're worried about the smell, if the smell bothers you, if it has a little bit of a rusty or tannic smell to it, you can wash it out over time. Everything with just a little bit of bar soap or something to that effect to get rid of the smell. Otherwise, the smell will dissipate after a little while. It's not going to be stuck in your fabric forever. So we did get a really nice color out of that. And like I said, you can go anywhere from where you start, where it's a very light silver gray, to leaving it for days at a time, and you'll get a really nice deep black. So it's a pretty cool way to do it. There are easier ways to make dyes that I found than doing this, but it's just kind of a cool actual color replacer rather than a dye and using the science and the chemical reaction to do it. It's a little bit of fun, so it's a good project. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll have some more dye videos coming out soon for the different seasons of what you can make by harvesting things in your own yard. And as always, thank you, and I'll see you next time.